Welcome to Overlooked. My name is Yemi, and I will be your host for the show. Released weekly, I share overlooked stories from around the world with you. This will include the good, the bad, the weird, and sometimes the absolutely hilarious. Come back often, share with your friends, and feel free to add the podcast to your regular podcast rotation, wherever you get your podcasts. If you come across stories or articles that you think should be featured here, please don't hesitate to share them. Now, it's time for this week's episode. Hi everyone, welcome to the very first special episode on the Overlooked podcast. In this special, our focus will be on the ongoing violent crisis in Southern Kaduna, located in Nigeria. We will also have our first interview guest, Alheri Magaji, who is with the RADi Foundation. The history of violent conflict in Southern Kaduna is a complex and long one. However, behind every story of conflict, the needs of the victims impacted in conflict zones are often ignored and put by the wayside. There is a proverb I learned growing up. It comes to mind here and it goes like this: when the elephants fight, it is the grass that suffers. This proverb applies to situations when very powerful figures fight at the expense of those who are relatively powerless. The powerless are the collateral damage. So while we will touch on some of the history of the conflict, the main focus will remain on the people whose lives have been impacted by the ongoing conflict in Southern Kaduna. Unlike our typical episodes where we touch briefly on multiple stories in a single episode, here we'll focus just on one story and do a deeper dive. That being said, this special episode and future ones will be longer than our typical 10 to 20 minute episodes. Here's the general outline for this week's show. First, I'll provide a background to put the interview into context. Next, we will jump straight into the interview with Alheri, and finally, we'll round out on how you can continue to follow the story and support the victims. As a quick note, during the editing process, I realized that the audio in the recording is slightly muffled relative to the rest of the audio. So I'm going to apologize for that. We'll make sure that next time it's a little bit more clear, but do bear with us as this is the very first interview recording. So if you'll let us, we'll just put that down to growing pains. I hope you understand. We'll do better next time. With all that being said, here's a disclaimer. This episode focuses on themes of physical violence against both adults and children. It may not be suitable for all audiences, so listener discretion is strongly advised. To start off, according to research, the use of the term Southern Kaduna has been controversial for many years. Some researchers and authors believe that it started being used regularly in about 1987 to refer to the southern part of Kaduna when it was detached from the Katsina province. But some others are adamant that the term became normalized after 1907 and referred to the districts belonging to the southern division of Zaria province set up by the British colonial administration. For the purpose of this podcast, we'll refer to Southern Kaduna as the southern part of the state of Kaduna in Nigeria. Nigeria itself is a country located in the western coast of Africa. The country has a diverse geography with a climate that ranges from dry in the north to humid in the west. However, Nigeria's most diverse feature is its people. Hundreds of languages are spoken in the country, including Yoruba, Igbo, Hausa, Edo, Ibibio, Tiv, and English. That is not even speaking of the variety and diversity in culture. Nigeria is not only large in area, with its landmass about 3 times as large as the United Kingdom, but it is also Africa's most populated country. The state of Kaduna is located in the northern part of Nigeria. It is a fusion of various religions, cultures, and traditions. On one hand, there is the northern and Islamic Hausa and Fulani ethnicity. And on the other hand, there's the southern indigenous communities that are predominantly Christian. With that, the northern part of Kaduna has become dominated by Hausa Fulani Muslims, while the Christian communities have migrated to the southern part of Kaduna, or Southern Kaduna. The territory of Southern Kaduna alone contains a mix of over 30 ethnic nationalities, which include the Aitab, the Kagoma, Adara, and others. To start with on the crisis, there is no consensus on what has caused the current crisis. However, a few themes have emerged on a relatively consistent basis across all sources that I found. These are religion, ethnicity, culture, and the grab for natural resources, which include land and water. In fact, a few sources such as Amnesty International believe that the land resources are at the heart of the conflict, while religion, ethnicity, and culture are being used as an excuse or as a cover. Land is an unbelievably valuable natural resource in this area, which has a lot of rural communities that survive on farming and livestock herding. The reason land accumulation is being pushed to the forefront is because of the increasing level of desertification of the northern part of the country that is pushing against an explosion of population in the area. Both factors have apparently helped to create a situation of land scarcity, hunger, and tension between the farming and the herding communities. With this tension in the background, religion, ethnicity, and culture are then portrayed as a spark that causes violent conflict and massive killings, which have gone on since the 80s. In the early 80s, the cause of the conflict was an attempt by ethnic natives who are predominantly Christian to try reclaiming part of the land that had been occupied by Fulanis who are predominantly Muslim. Subsequently, there was another eruption of violence over an alleged misrepresentation and interpretation of the Quran that happened in the late 80s. In 1992, a major clash started due to the relocation of the central market. This was followed by the Sharia crisis in the year 2000, when Sharia law was introduced in a state which has a mixed religious background. And there was a subsequent clash in the post-presidential election violence in April 2011. Since the mid-2000s, some of the dominant features of attacks in Southern Kaduna have been night raids on Christians and Christian communities by the Hausa Fulani Muslim herdsmen. There have been years of violence and retaliatory actions that have continued in the midst of government inaction. In a 2018 report, Amnesty International found evidence that on at least 7 occasions, security forces received information about impending attacks in these rural areas, and in some cases, the security forces came in contact with attackers but did nothing to stop or prevent the attacks. While there has been the appearance of some sort of response, to anyone watching with a critical eye, it appears that the government has essentially left these communities to their fate. For example, Governor El-Rufai, the head of Kaduna State, imposed a 24-hour curfew in mid-2020, but this has done little to stop the night raids. The actual numbers of lives lost and displaced is hard to pin down. In a September 2020 article by Vanguard newspapers, the youth wing of Southern Kaduna People's Union, or SUKAPU, has said that over 700 natives had been killed and about 100,000 people have become internally displaced people, or IDPs. This is almost certainly an underestimate, given how long these attacks have been going on for, the remoteness of some of the villages, and the difficulty in gathering data that have been highlighted by organizations such as Amnesty International and World Watch. What we know for certain is that many schools, hospitals, markets, and places of worship have been destroyed or closed, and entire communities have been displaced from their homes. I could go on and on about the stories of the fathers, the mothers, the brothers, the sisters, and relatives that were murdered or maimed, but some of that will come through as Alheri and I discuss the issue. That being said, and in the interest of full disclosure, Alheri is no stranger to me. We met in university, and while we lost touch afterwards, we have been connected through Facebook all this time. Through her Facebook page, I started to learn more and more about the crisis in Southern Kaduna and from the perspective of the people impacted. Away from the political posturing, for the last few years, she has been sharing the stories of the people. Through pictures, most of which are heartbreaking, and interviews, she has showed the humanity behind the stats. From children being maimed to pregnant mothers being butchered, having their babies ripped out of their bellies, the stories have been raw and heart-wrenching. This interview was pre-recorded a couple of weeks ago, and I have to confess that I had to take a very long walk after we were done. As I now switch us over to the interview, I will implore you to open your heart and mind to the people that have been affected, irrespective of the race, culture, religion, or creed. All right, so Alheri, Welcome. Would you mind introducing yourselves to
Hi.
our listeners? Hi.
Hello, everybody. My name is Alheri Magaji. I'm Adara. I'm from Kaduna State, Kaduna local government in Nigeria. And I'm the co-founder of RADi. It means Resilient Aid and Dialogue Initiative, which a friend of mine and I started last year because of the crisis happening in Kaduna State. It actually was birthed because my dad got arrested. My dad is the wazir in Adara, so he's the interim chief before a new one is installed, which hasn't been installed since 2018 when the old chief, the former chief was murdered. I got involved in everything I do now because my dad got arrested, and of course, his children started digging. Why would he be arrested? Why would the Kaduna State government be interested in arresting him? Because the allegations were just crazy. He was arrested because Fulani were allegedly killed in a certain village he had never been to before. And he and 8 other Adara elders were said to be the mastermind of the killings of the Fulani. And it raised a lot of eyebrows for me at the time because a lot of Adara people had been killed and no Fulani Ardo was ever arrested. No Muslim leader was ever arrested at that point. And we thought it strange that 9 Adara elders would be killed because some Fulani were allegedly. All lives matter, yes, but let the justice be fair, you know.
Yeah.
So it made me to start digging, and in digging, I found out about the displaced people who were there as a result of the crisis.
Yeah.
And I got involved with them, and really that was how the foundation. I never planned to register it or have it like a functioning formal organization. It was really just, you know, I see a lady with her hands chopped off. I go on Facebook and I say, oh, I met this lady today with hands chopped off. What can we do for her? And people contribute and say, do this and do this. And I take the money and come back on Facebook and be like, oh, we raised about 100,000, let's say. This is what we did with it. I'll post receipts. And it started off like that. And a donor from the US I've never met called me up one day through Facebook from my post and said I should register it. And I'm like, the money I'll use to register it, I'd rather help someone with it. And so he sent me the money. So I brought in a friend. I couldn't start something. I just do what I do. I'm not experienced in how an NGO is supposed to function. I really didn't have any experience. So I brought in a friend of mine, Ruben Buhari. He has a lot of experience in what I was doing. And I needed experienced hands and an older person who had been in the game for long.
Yeah.
So I brought him in and we co-founded the organization together, and we've been running it since then.
And that's kind of how I got familiar even with this crisis myself, because I wasn't as familiar as you would appreciate because there's not that much news about it, which is part of why we're talking. And so it was your Facebook post that actually kind of opened my eyes to, oh my God, there's this happening in Nigeria. And so before we even dive into the topic, can you tell us one fun fact about yourself that you are willing to share with the listeners?
One fun fact, let me see. I do a lot of things that people will be shocked to know. I actually like to cook. I consider myself like a chef.
Oh.
Yeah, but yeah, I think those who eat my food.
So what's your favorite thing? What's your favorite? Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
Rice.
Rice
is like my favorite thing ever. Rice in any way, shape, or form. I make rice.
We could be sisters. I love pasta.
Make 20 different. Oh yeah, I can make 20 different dishes with rice. Like, I love rice. Rice, rice is everything to me.
No, that's fantastic. We should probably have you call into our Africa in My Kitchen show at some point, because that's the other podcast that I produce. Because you like that one.
I like.
All right. So that being said, what I wanted to ask you, and because I know you probably get approached from many different places, and I've seen that you've done a number of interviews. So my main question next to you is, why do you do them, and why do you think it is important for people to get a lot more familiar with what is happening in Southern Kaduna?
Because the narrative out there is not really what is happening. Although I have to say that within the past 6 months, I think social media campaigns have actually gone a long way. Like interviews with women, people have actually taken interest and come to interview people for themselves. I know organizations are coming down to Kaduna themselves. And if we hadn't been talking, or if I hadn't been giving those interviews with many others, of course,
Yeah.
We wouldn't have been able to because that was what we wanted, Like when my dad, when they were in prison, people would call us or when we go to beg someone to wade into the matter, they will ask, what do you want? We never said we want them released just like that. We said, let the law follow its due course.
Yeah.
They should take them to court. My dad stayed 103 days in a convict prison. He was denied bail and never given a trial. So we wanted them to go to court, show us the evidence you say you had. And they didn't have any evidence. And after over 100 days, they were released. Case was acquitted and discharged for lack of evidence. And we wanted people to know that this is what is happening in Kaduna State. The government can just lock up people without evidence for over 100 days, just like that, and nothing happens to them. You don't have a right to cry out. People are being killed. Babies, women are being killed and slaughtered while they sleep. And every time someone tries to talk about it, they get blackmailed, threatened, arrested. I've been in and out of the police station in the past 1 year. Really.
Wow.
But you see now, awareness has caused so many people to be talking now. So who do you arrest now, really?
Yeah.
So the awareness has been great, and I think that is the reason why we gave interviews. We didn't like the narrative out there that, when you hear, it's farmer-herder conflict.
Yeah, that's what I was hearing. Yeah.
No. That's what was going out there, and we needed people to understand that, no. And there are, for example, under a Hausa Muslim area, these are things that cause tension. These are things that will not allow this crisis to end. And people needed to know that it was a deeper context than what was out there. So that was why I gave the interview then.
All right, perfect. So right now, can you kind of give a little background on the current crisis? And for that, it will be really good if you can talk a little bit about the people of Southern Kaduna. When we chatted pre-interview, the idea is there's a lot of narratives on the politics of it, but the focus here is on the humanitarian side, where we want to talk about the people that are actually impacted. And so if you can kind of put the humanity to the numbers that we see, who are the people of Southern Kaduna, how many people have been displaced, where are they now, and what is their situation like? So if you can just kind of paint that picture for us, that'll be fantastic.
When I started meeting displaced people, the stories I heard, even horror movie directors won't be able to put that on the screen.
Wow.
Seriously.
Wow.
I met a lady her name is Jumai. She had 4 children and she was 5 months pregnant. It's actually her story and Rahila's story that made me start RADi, because I went to the hospital to see them after reading about their story online. And I met her and she told me herself this and said 4 of her children were asked to lie down on the floor. And the Fulani people that came to attack them were sitting at their... Most of the villages then that were attacked were villages in the interior, like not on the road. So the people there don't even have phones. They don't even speak English, even Hausa, they don't really speak. They only speak the dialect. So those who came to attack them actually spoke in the Adara dialect. And when they told the children to lie down in Hausa, they couldn't hear. They told them to lie down in Adara. And when they laid down on the floor, they were slaughtered. I have the pictures. She still has not seen the pictures since that day. And the other day I asked her, would she want to see them now? She said no. She lived it. She doesn't want to see it. You know the way you slaughter a goat at an abattoir? That was how our children were slaughtered in front of her.
How old were they?
3 of them were slaughtered. Samu is now 5. He's a twin.
Oh, God.
She had a twin set and 2 children. Samu is now, this happened when he was 5. So they were 5, 4. The oldest, I think, was about 8 or 7 at the time. They were kids. And one of them, somehow, a miracle happened. They couldn't find him. He was right there crying because, the blood of his siblings was all over him. But they couldn't see him. They went around the house looking for him, but he was right there in front of her. So that's a miracle that happened. And I asked her, why does she think that happened? She said she feels God was telling her in that moment that he sees and he's there. In the midst of the carnage and the blood and everything, like God was speaking to her that he was going to be there for her. And they cut off her left hand, cut off her. She has this huge scar. They tried to sever her head from her body. Somehow a miracle happened. She survived. She has terrible scars on her back and neck. Her left hand from the arm was completely cut off.
Wow.
She's now with one hand. And then the 5-month pregnancy she had was stomped on, and she lost the baby. So in a day, she lost 4 children and her limbs.
Wow.
And these are stories I heard, and I heard that for the first time, and I couldn't even cry. I think I was just numb. And then I asked her, what will you want me to do for you? And she said to pray for her soul, because she gets panic attacks. Well, she didn't say panic. She can't say the word.
Yeah.
But she said she literally feels like her heart can't take the pain. So she just wanted me to pray for her and tell people to pray for her, that when the feelings come, God will grant her peace. And that really, really touched me. And there was a second woman with her, but they were the people who made me first go to Facebook to say, these 2 women, I met them today. This is what they said, and I would like to raise money for us to help them in any way we can. Because, I mean, they lost everything. Everything. They lost everything. And so I raised 362,000 in 3 days at that point.
And for our listeners, that is Nigerian naira. And so you can convert it to between 300 naira to $1, or it ranges. Yeah.
At that point, it was about $1,000. But now $1,000 is like 400,000. But at the point, the equivalent is about $1,000 US dollars. So that was how I got involved, and from then on, we started, people after them. I would always see a story and just post, and then people would react depending on what the need was. Some people needed to get a house to stay, some people needed a mattress, some people needed food, they needed clothes. And gradually, a lot of people started calling me, oh, I need to donate to this. And I realized at that point is that a lot of people want to help, but they don't know who to give the money to, or who to send the clothes to, or how to get them to Kaduna State, for example.
Yeah.
So I will tell them, send it to me, and I'll make sure it gets to the people. As at the time, there were camps, official IDP camps last year in 2019. There were 12,480 displaced people in the camps in one local government. That was in Kajuru alone. And
wow.
I don't know why the government will wake up one day and decide to close the camp. I will tell you from my own point of view, I think it was the proof that things were really bad. And, people were calling and asking what's happening. And then those who wanted to hide it would say, oh, it's nothing. It's just some other conflict. But then when you hear there are 12,480 IDPs, it makes you wonder, what kind of farmer harder conflict has that many people from one tribe? So where are the IDPs from the other side? It started raising eyebrows, and I personally think that is why they were shut down. I don't know.
Yeah, and
that's my opinion.
Yeah, and for our listeners who are not familiar, IDP means internally displaced people.
Internally displaced people. Yes.
Yeah.
And so the camps were shut down, and so the people were just everywhere. They were in incomplete buildings, incomplete shops. Those who got lucky got families to take them in, or at least take the children in.
Yeah, 12,000 people are a lot. So where are these people now?
Actually, now it's at least 20,000 now in one local government.
Oh,
at
wow.
least 20,000 people.
And these are all from Adara?
Yes, all Adara people. In a crisis, there are casualties. I grew up with Fulani people. I grew up with a Fulani man as my grandfather. His house was right next to mine. I didn't have a paternal grandfather growing up. He was my paternal grandfather. All the sweets a grandfather would give you, always going round the village with your granddad. A Fulani man was that for me. Baba happened. So there are casualties too on the Fulani side, of course. When a community is there and Fulani people come in to kill you, and it will naturally create enmity between the two tribes.
Yeah.
So it's Fulanis are victims too. So what I expected to quell this thing was for the Fulanis who were innocent and not party to all this to join hands with the Adara people at the time to condemn these acts and to look for a solution. But at that point, it looked as only the other were talking, and every time we talk, we say we're lying. And so it just escalated to the point where it created tension between the two tribes. You still see Fulani people, but not like before. Like, things are definitely not the same. There's a barrier now. And then, of course, we meet on market days, or they pass with their cows. But then there's definitely tension. You can't pass a Fulani enclave like we used to, and a Fulani person can't pass a Southern Kaduna enclave like they used to, you know? So there are definitely Fulani IDPs, or I won't say IDPs, Fulani people who are victims, because I personally have. I recently saw the government say they took food to Fulani IDP camps, and I asked, in what village were they before? Did they run away from there because of tension, or we're still asking when a Southern Kaduna community unprovoked entered any community to attack them while they sleep? We still don't have answers for that.
Wow, thank you so much for providing that color.
Sorry, I would want to add that I went for an event recently, a peace building event, and the Commissioner for Insecurity in Kaduna State, whatever his title is, I don't even understand what he is there for. But the commissioner in charge of security was there at the meeting, and my name was called, and he now switched up his speech and didn't talk about what he was there to speak about. And I was the topic of discussion the whole time he was there. He called my name and said we were the reasons why the crisis was escalating. Because in their mind, what they think is that me saying my story is giving a narrative that makes the government look bad. And my answer to that was, it's my story. I never came out to say Fulani were victims, or there were no Fulani people who were affected, but I need them to tell their story.
Yeah.
You know, and he specifically mentioned and said, Alheri only cares about the Southern Kaduna people. He now turned and said, do you know Fulani were killed on so date? And I said, yes. I never, well, not yes that I know. I just said, can you make the Fulani to tell their story? The way I'm saying mine, I can only tell my story. I'm not going to go and beg people to tell me their story.
Yeah.
So where is the Fulani story? You know, I never came out to say we're for humanity and justice. We just want peace. Yeah. But the government makes it look as if, Southern Kaduna people are stubborn people. We are ready to talk. We are ready to dialogue. Let the government come in, wade in. But you can't say you're having peace talks and then not talking to the victims of the crisis, or not talking to the representatives of the Southern Kaduna people. What they do is just get someone who will say anything the government wants them to say, betray their people, and just say anything they want to say to look good to the cameras. There's peace talks happening and going on. No. You can't have any peace talk with Southern Kaduna without talking with Sokapu. Sokapu means the Southern Kaduna People's Union, which is the mouthpiece for the Southern Kaduna people. So pray, tell me, what peace talk are you talking about if Sokapu is not involved in it? Because they are speaking for the people.
Yeah.
So it doesn't make sense.
Yeah. So I guess my next question now would be pulling us back to the RADi Foundation. And so I know you talked about someone sending you money from abroad and helping get the foundation started. But then how else have you been receiving support? If you can actually provide some color on like how else you've been receiving support. You know, there's food, there's shelter. What are your main sources? And quick question, if you were to receive some kind of large donation right now, what would it go towards? And the way I would kind of imagine that is, say, what will it be able to provide? So some people say, well, if you give, 500, it goes towards food, shelter, something like that. So if you could kind of provide some color on that, that would be very helpful.
Okay. We get funding. I actually have never written a proposal till recently. All the things we've been able to do at the RADi is really people reaching out. Wow. When we post what we've done, maybe if I see someone and we took whatever the person gave and I posted, someone gave 10,000, we took it and gave the mother of triplets. And really, we never, even the proposal we wrote recently was an organization that a top management staff gave us slots for one of the 3 NGOs, the organization does the corporate social responsibility with. And that was what even made us write that proposal, because she said, oh, I nominated you guys and I would want you to write about RADi and stuff. And I told my partner then, I was like, we've never really written a proposal. It hit me at that point.
Wow. So
Like, we never
everything
really
has been people just reaching out saying, I see what you're doing. I want to help.
Yes. That has really been how we get money. And then I think because of our accountability, we have been able to have some kind of trust with people.
Mm-hmm.
Because I have people who send money first time, maybe they'll send 50,000 naira, and then I'll send back what we did with pictures and receipts and all that. And so it will go to maybe 100,000, and from 100,000, I'll still tell you this is what we did with the 100,000, and this is what we used for admin costs or transportation costs inside. Like, I break everything down and send to the person.
Wow.
And there are picture evidences. And so I think we were able to build trust in such a short time.
Mm-hmm.
I have people tell me, oh, I send money to Nigeria all the time to NGOs or people to help, and they don't do this. And so I think because our greatest challenge when we started, it was two ways. Because the state people are used to people using their stories to make money.
Yeah.
And then people are used to donating money for things and it doesn't get done.
Yeah.
So it was a huge task trying to let the people know that, like, look, you're going to video, I take pictures of you with the money, and you're going to actually say in the video that I gave you 20,000 or 30,000 so that I tell the person. Because I can give you money and take a picture, but it's 10,000 I gave you, not 20.
Yeah.
So I think with that, I was able to build trust with the IDP to let them know that the money given for them was actually coming for them.
Mm-hmm. That's good.
And then, of course, it's not 100%. We still have people who say we're cheating them or, it happens. But generally speaking, I think we've been able to gain that trust both ways. Recently, just 2 days ago, Human Rights Writers Association of Nigeria wanted to give 10,000 naira for triplets that were born to a displaced mom, all girls. And so the person who reached out to me from him, he doesn't know me, because we still have issues with our Nigerian registration. We have the UK registration, but we're still not done. So we tell people we have an official account number for RADi in Nigeria, but if it's something we want done immediately, we can't withdraw the money yet, because we're on the last stage of our PhD. We need to give them our certificate and then we can withdraw.
Okay.
So if it's something long term you want to do later, then we can give you the official RADi account and you put it there. But a need that is now, we give our personal account with a receipt. We have a RADi receipt, which I understand a lot of people don't trust, and it's completely understood.
Yeah.
So when he reached out and I gave my personal account number, he said he can't put it in a personal account number. And then I woke up 2 days ago to a message from the contact, the middle person. And she said he reached out to her and said, who is this Alheri? Because he reached out to 3 people and everybody's like, trust me, just give Alheri the money. So she was like, oh, I told you, she has gained trust a lot of people. And in fact, he reached out to SOCAPU, the Southern Kaduna People's Union, officially, because that's the body that anybody that wants something legally done in Southern Kaduna, we normally pass through SOCAPU. So he reached out to SOCAPU and said he needs to give 10,000, and they replied in a text with my name. This is her number, just call her. Anything you need done will be done.
Yeah.
So it's very humbling to me and to RADi, but really, I think being accountable for every money given to us. We just started a year ago.
Yeah.
But I think we've done quite a lot. So that's how we get money. We get money from individuals. We have other NGOs who want to help the Southern Kaduna people too. So we partner. They bring in 100% of the funding, of course, and we deliver whatever they want delivered to the people, and we give them back proof of delivery.
Okay, fantastic.
So that's how we get. So we've never gotten funding or grants or like a huge it's private or individual donations from people.
So that's fantastic. Yeah. And the transparency, I think, is very important, because a lot of people tend to lose faith if they send money or send some kind of donation and it goes into a void, never to be seen or heard from again. And just to kind of move us along a little bit, how can people reach RADi? Does RADi have a GoFundMe? or it's just just a bank account?
We have a link on our website.
Okay.
It's radifoundation.org.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
If you go there, there's a link to pay to the official, because we're officially registered in the UK.
Mm-hmm.
So we have official RADi accounts for foreign currency.
Okay.
Dollar, euro, pound. Yes. It's only the Nigerian account number that we still collect first from our personal account. So we do give accounts for it.
Okay.
We
Fantastic.
do give you a retreat and all that. Yes. So there's a link on the website.
Okay. So
and then the website also tells you other people's stories. You get to know about other displaced people and their stories and how you can help. The immediate need right now is food, of course. Look, if you're with these people, when we visit them, they're literally smelling. Because the little they have, nobody's thinking of bathing or washing their teeth. They need to eat. So there's an immediate need for food and toiletries and health essentials.
Yeah.
Detergent, sanitary pads for the ladies, clothes up. And we noticed they never ever buy. I met a lady one time in December. We went for an outreach, and her face was swollen. And she said she hadn't slept in 3 days. She was holding 2 little babies. And I asked her, why would we stay in too much pain? Anybody that has had a toothache knows how bad it is.
Yeah.
And her face was literally swollen completely on one side. And I asked her, why won't you go to the clinic? And she said her babies need to eat. So if her mouth is going to pain her for her babies to eat, that's a sacrifice she has to make.
Oh my God.
And it broke my heart. I was just like, how are people living like this in their own home? This is
their own
she
land.
had everything. Everything was burned, and so these things really touch me. So the immediate need, like I said, is food and toiletries. But we try not to. What we really try to do now is to empower them. Because you give them soap, after 3 days it's finished. You give them food, after a week it's finished. And then what? They live on handouts. They live on people who give them food every day. So we try to empower them to be able to spend for themselves. Try to give them $100 goes a long way. With $100, a woman can rent a place to at least settle in with her family, because it's hard to even begin to build your life back when you're living under someone's roof. When a family takes you in, how do you even begin? So that alone mentally is traumatic for them. And a lot of them have seen horrors. Babies, if a helicopter or a plane passes, they literally begin to shake and cry.
So there's like post-traumatic stress.
Yes, and they're dealing with that on the side, and then they're dealing with not even having food to eat, a place to lay their head. We went to Remo, a place in Kaduna, about 3 weeks ago. They were literally sleeping on the bare floor. Some of them did not even have a mat to sit down, So they need mattresses, they need mats. But then when money comes in bulk, and we have organizations who want to cater to widows, for example, or even the men who need to work. So you give them 20,000 naira, 30,000 naira, depending on what you want to do with it, to help them build their lives back. The old saying of teaching them how to fish instead of just giving them the fish to eat.
Yeah.
So that's what we're trying to look into now at RADi.
So, I just want to commend you for all your hard work that yourself and the foundation are doing. It takes a lot to step into these people's world and just say, I'm here to help you. And I can imagine that they're mistrustful of people coming from the outside to help. So it's amazing that a daughter of the soil, as we say it, has actually taken it upon herself to, step out of our modern, in quotes, comforts and just go and help people from home. As we're rounding up here, I just had, and I know in the interest of time, you have a conflicting meeting, but in the interest of time, we have said people can connect with you at the RADi Foundation, and I'll put the link in the bio so that people are able to connect there, and also the Facebook link, because I know RADi is also on Facebook.
Yeah.
And I think
and Twitter as well.
And Twitter, yes, that is Resilient Aid. That would be your Twitter handle.
Yes.
I had 2 more questions, and if you're okay, they'll be really quick. So the first question would be, so not the people now, going back to you, because it must be very hard for you to go and see this and go home at the end of the day. And I want to be cognizant of that, because people tend to also forget the people that provide the services are human beings too. And everyone has to somehow compartmentalize this as part of, the process. So how do you deal with it? How has this impacted you, and what challenges do you face?
My biggest challenge in all of this has been guilt. I go and see these people and I come back home. My bed is all made up waiting for me. I can hug my baby. I'm a single mom to a 6-year-old. And being able to hug her, I feel guilty sometimes. Like I have this privilege and a lot of people don't. They didn't do anything wrong. They're not more special than I am.
Mm-hmm.
So I had to work on myself and really pray a lot and talk to people to get myself out of that mindset. I still have it, but I think I control it more now. Is it control? I deal with it more now. I don't, it's really hard. It's really hard to go out and see people literally not able to eat or sitting on the bare floor and come back and I have a kitchen and my microwave is there, I just warm my food. I still have those moments. I was warming food today. I put the plate in the microwave and I'm like, wow. There are families that don't even have phones. Like, they don't even know this part of life.
Yeah.
My siblings live in America. I feel like I have it all. But the upside to that is I'm more grateful for things I previously saw as little. I am so full of gratitude now. I think I'm beginning to become annoying to people around me the way I'm thankful for everything around me.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's opened my mind to a lot of things we take for granted.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Being able to take your kids to good schools, just being able to wake up, bath my daughter, take her to school, drop her, pick her up, bring her back, she goes to ballet, and I'm like, other children in the villages are literally running for their lives without being shot at. So that was my greatest challenge in all of this. It still is, but I had to speak to people and they tried to tell me, look, you can't allow, it's just the way it is. The way you think you're grateful, there's someone that sees you as poor too,
Yeah.
So it's just the way the world revolves. It's just the way it is. So you can only really do what you can. And second to that, I have 3 challenges actually. That's number 1. Number 2 was trying to be a good mom and still do what I do. So what I did to deal with that was to create a mommy and me time with my daughter that I tried for nothing to come in between that me and that time. So she knows that whatever it is, however busy I get, I switch off my phone and that time is for her. Almost on a daily basis. I have to do that because the work is so tedious. It takes me away completely. I don't even see my family that much anymore. I'm busy every day. And then the third challenge is not being able to do enough, I feel. I have to stop myself all the time and say, look at what you've done. Because every time we go out, it's just overwhelming and daunting and discouraging. So many times I want to give it up and say, I'm not even doing anything. Let me just shut down and forget about it. Or when I lose someone, I lost Blessing recently. That really, really hurt me. I cried for days because I felt like I failed her. Because every time I go to the hospital and she's there and she look at me and be like, Auntie, I won't make it. And I'm like, you will. I promise you will. Just get well, I'll put you in school. And so when she died, I felt like I didn't do enough. I didn't beg the doctors enough to see her, to give her a bed. It's a lot, personally for me, it's a lot. And truly, I have a lot of days I want to shut down and tell myself, look, the world won't end if you face front and just forget about all these things you're doing. You're not making a difference anyway.
Yeah.
But like I said in an interview I did with Life Changers, I said there's this story, this is the end, I'm going to end it here. A lot has helped me. I think talking about issues that are disturbing me helps a lot. Like seeing a therapist, talking to my pastor, talking to my parents. When you leave things inside too long, because sometimes it seems like, why would you say something like that? People think you're this strong, all together, put together person.
Exactly.
And no, I break down. I go out and I come back and I get angry with even the people I'm trying to help, And I have to remind myself of this story I heard. I honestly don't know where I heard this story. I read it somewhere online and I can't remember the source or what. But it was about a little boy who went on the beach and found starfish everywhere on the beach. And so he woke up very early and started throwing the starfish back into the sea. And so an older man came out and said, "What are you doing?" And he said, "He's putting the starfish back into the sea." And the man goes and tells him, "You're not making a difference. Like, look around you. Do you see how many starfish are out here?" And he picked up one and looked at the man and said, "It made a difference." He got one and threw it back into the sea. And it says a lot to me because, okay, I can't do much. I can't take all the starfish back into the sea. But the ones who've been able to help made a huge difference in their lives. And so I try to focus on that instead of what is ahead and what I've not done. So it has really helped me.
Thank you so much. Just before we end here, is there anything you wanted to say that you felt you've not been able to say? Any shout outs, any thanks? Is there anything you want to get out there?
The shout out has to be to our donors. It has to be to our donors. Every award I've received, where I've been honored or recognized for my work, it's dedicated to the donors. Like, I can't do anything. It's not my money. It's not my money. I can't do anything. RADi can't do anything without our donors. So this is a shout out to everybody that has donated money, their time, the doctors who come to give free treatment, free diagnosis, everybody that contributes in one way or the other to make RADi work. Our volunteers, Ruben and I are so grateful to our volunteers because we don't have a proper office. It's not an organization where there's a paid staff. No. So to have people who are willing to come out and help us and use their time, it's mind-blowing to me. And honestly, it breaks me to my knees. In I don't know what word. It humbles me to know that. And then it reminds us all that despite all the wickedness and the killings and all that, there is love in the world. And love does surpass evil. And that's one of our mottos in RADi. That's our motto, actually. It's replacing terror with love.
Fantastic.
That's what we do. And really, it's clear that love still surpasses terror. So it's been an awesome experience, even though it's short, but it feels like I've been doing this for 20 years.
I bet. Alheri, I want to thank you so much for your time. I want to be very respectful of it.
Thank you so much for this opportunity. Thank you.
Have yourself a great day, and give love and thoughts and prayers and everything else to everyone you reach out to. Some people may not have the money, but I'm pretty sure even prayers are very, very, very welcome. All right. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for this. Thank you.
All right.
Have a nice day.
So I will not ask if you enjoyed the interview, but what I do hope is that you found it informative. Here are my final thoughts. Regardless of where you stand on the source of the issue, religious, ethnic, economics, or for some other reason, two things have become blatantly clear. First, the attacks have been going on for far too long, and there seems to be no obvious path to justice for those who are affected, and this failure lies at the feet of those in authority. Second, the humanitarian response by the government has also fallen short. The burden of taking care of internally displaced people has fallen on the shoulders of non-profit organizations such as RADi, local churches, and other Good Samaritans. The government by the people should work for the people, and that is for all people, not for some chosen privileged few. There's a lot of finger pointing going on, and if you look at the references, you'll see that too. But this solves nothing. The government has a responsibility to ensure that all people displaced as a result of this and any other crisis are provided with timely and adequate relief, including protection, shelter, food, and healthcare, while those who have suffered significant losses should be provided with some sort of compensation. When will the killings in Southern Kaduna stop? Only time and action will tell. In the meantime, you can support RADi Foundation through their website link at radifoundation.org. I have also posted the link to their Facebook page in the show notes and on the blog. Both the website and the Facebook page has stories and pictures from the people of Southern Kaduna that have been affected. These photos are raw and may seem gruesome to us, sitting on the other side. But what they do show is the terror that the people of Southern Kaduna are facing on almost a daily basis. It is not special effects, it is real life. This brings us to the end of the episode. All sources, and there are a lot of them, have been included in the blog. The link is in the show notes. Thank you once again for listening. Let me know what you think of these longer specials, and have yourselves a great week. Thanks for listening, friends. As a reminder, the podcast is released weekly. Subscribe or follow across social media to be notified when a new episode is released. Overlooked is a Tunuka media production, which also includes shows like Africa in My Kitchen, with more on the way. Follow Tunuka Media on Instagram, YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter to connect to say hi or to be on the forefront of upcoming shows and program schedules. Until next time, I'm your host Yemi.